This is BRICS Global Television Network's daily roundup. We begin with the headlines. Heavy rains persist in Brazil. The World Health Organization sounds the alarm over cholera in Kenya. Emirates Airline chief unhappy with Boeing. And South African building collapse death toll rises. Hello, I'm Juliet Newell. We begin in Porto do Sul, Brazil. There seems to be no respite for Brazilians in the south of the country as heavy rains persist. Weeks of torrential rains have led to severe flooding and landslides. At least 136 people have lost their lives. Hundreds have been injured and more than 100 are missing. More than 500,000 people have been displaced. Roads have washed away, bridges have collapsed, homes have been damaged or completely destroyed, and many people are unable to leave their homes as rivers of muddy water flow down the streets. According to authorities, the floodwaters are expected to rise again. Emergency teams are desperately trying to reach those who need help, using jet skis and inflatable boats in their rescue efforts. And pet shelters and veterinarians are doing what they can to help animals affected by the floods. Federal government has pledged $10 billion to reconstruct Rio do Sul. Donation centres have been set up across the country. President Luiz da Silva says it's the largest movement of donations ever recorded in the history of Brazil. Meanwhile, there's another crisis unfolding in Brazil. The country is facing a crisis in health officials' battle against the spread of dengue fever. It's a mosquito-borne viral infection that causes symptoms including high fever, severe headaches, joint and muscle pain, nausea and mild bleeding such as nosebleeds or gum bleeding. In severe cases, dengue can progress to a potentially life-threatening condition known as dengue hemorrhagic fever, characterized by bleeding, plasma leakage and organ impairment. BGTN Brazil correspondent Chris Goldenbaum has spent some time with epidemic agents. He explains what they're doing to mitigate the spread of the disease.
This year, Brazil is in the midst of a dengue fever epidemic. Dengue fever is a tropical disease that spreads through the bite of infected mosquitoes, carrying the dengue virus. In severe cases, the disease can lead to hospitalization or even death. So far this year, the number of cases has already more than doubled compared to the numbers reported in 2023. Out of nearly 4 million cases, 1,725 deaths have been reported. Several measures are being taken to control the spread of the disease, which causes symptoms like muscular pain, fever, weakness, and facial pain. A vaccine is also available. One of the most common ways to prevent the spread of mosquitoes is to stop them from reproducing. The Endemic Agents program in São Paulo sends health agents into neighborhoods to inspect people's houses to make sure that they are not providing breeding grounds for mosquitoes. BGTN followed the agents on a mission. Robson Piangetti and his team visit as many houses as possible in areas with positive cases to eliminate potential mosquito breeding sites.
O trabalho ele é ininterrupto, o ano todo. A gente tem ações de prevenção e ações de correção.
Our work is continuous. All year we have actions of prevention and actions of correction. Today it's a correction action. Our focus is to eliminate breeding of mosquitoes and attend to complaints. Next week we'll be back here to apply the insecticide to eliminate the adult mosquitoes. Today you watched us eliminate the mosquitoes in the larvae phase.
Acompanhando aqui na reportagem, vocês podem acompanhar que a gente fez a eliminação de fases larvárias.
As I follow the agents, I notice they are welcome in some houses, while ignored in others. It's also common for neighbors to view agent visits as an opportunity to express their concerns about other houses that are not being cared for enough. This is exactly what happened here. The residents informed the agents about a place on their neighbor's roof that was inaccessible and collecting rainwater, providing the ideal scenario for mosquitoes whose eggs can survive up to a month in such an environment. At another house, we discover an abandoned water tank containing stagnant water and an abundance of mosquito larvae. According to Piangente, this is very likely to be from the Aedes aegypti, the dengue mosquito. After collecting maggots for laboratory testing, the agents clean up the area next to Miss Rosa Lemos' house.
I'm very worried. So when I see the mosquito, I go and kill it because I don't know if it's a dangerous mosquito. Because I'm already an old person. I'm 77. If the mosquito bites me, it's cause for concern.
If someone contracts dengue at Lemos' age, the chances of a difficult recovery or death are significantly higher. Fortunately, Lemos and her neighbors are no longer living near this breeding ground. Perhaps the best way to prevent a health issue to grow is the cooperation between citizens and public agents. With the Endemic Program Agency, São Paulo is giving a true lesson on how to fight this issue. Chris Goldenbaum, BGTN, São Paulo, Brazil.
Kenya is facing a crisis of its own as heavy rains continue to wreak havoc across the East African area, with Kenya bearing the brunt of the disaster. The nation is grieving the lives lost last month when a makeshift dam near Mai Mahiu ruptured, the deadliest incident in a brutal rainy season. The April 29th pre-dawn disaster unleashed a torrent of water and mud after heavy downpours, devastating the village of Kamurchiri. A memorial service has been held in Mai Mahiu, drawing thousands, including victims' families, residents and political leaders. Under a somber atmosphere, portraits of the deceased, mainly children, stood alongside flowers and candles. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua offered condolences on behalf of the President William Ruto, vowing solidarity with those affected. But the crisis is far from over. The government has warned of continued heavy rains in most counties and rising water levels in critical lakes, raising the spectre of further flooding. The El Nino weather pattern exacerbates the situation, with a total death toll across East Africa reaching at least 475, according to compiled data. Kenya alone has lost 257 lives and displaced nearly 55,000 households since March. Meanwhile, the United Nations has raised the alarm over a potential cholera outbreak in Kenya, where dozens of cases have been reported in flood-stricken areas. This comes as the death toll from rain-related disasters in the country surpasses 250. The World Health Organization has identified 44 cases of cholera in Tana River County, one of the regions hardest hit by weeks of heavy rains and flooding. Despite expressing confidence in containing the outbreak, the UN's resident coordinator Stephen Jackson has acknowledged the significant risk posed by cholera spreading through contaminated food and water. Cholera causes severe diarrhea, vomiting and muscle cramps, posing a particular threat to young children. The WHO has reiterated its supporting the emergency response and remaining vigilant for potential disease outbreaks. In the Western Cape, South Africa, days after a building under construction collapsed in George, another survivor was pulled out from beneath the rubble over the weekend. Rescue workers say they heard a groaning sound and stopped all their machinery to listen more closely. They called out and a man responded, saying there was heavy weight on his legs. The recovery operation lasted a few hours with doctors on hand to help where they could. The man asked for water as he waited for rescuers to move slabs of concrete to free him. Onlookers cheered as 32-year-old construction worker Gabriel Gaumba emerged after spending around 119 hours trapped under concrete. He's recovering well and remarkably has only suffered minor injuries. The building collapsed on Monday with at least 81 workers on site at the time of the incident. The death toll stands at 21. 27 people have been recovered. 14 of those are currently in hospital. There are still 31 people unaccounted for. Meanwhile, Western Cape Premier Alan Windy says the process of identifying the bodies is difficult and that police have been using fingerprints, DNA testing and photographs. The cause of the collapse is under investigation. Staying in South Africa ahead of the most competitive elections in decades, South Africa's highest court heard an appeal on Friday to rule that former President Jacob Zuma is unfit to run for parliament. 82-year-old Jacob Zuma is leading Umkhonto weSizwe, a brand new opposition party that could cause trouble in the general elections scheduled for May the 29th. However, election authorities contend that the politicians tainted by graft ought to be disqualified from the contest because of a 2021 conviction for contempt of court. BGTN South Africa correspondent Yolanda Pondo has more.
After a lower court in April sided with Zuma, the Johannesburg Constitutional Court was asked to rule on the case. The case has alarmed some observers since it is taking place only weeks before what is anticipated to be the most contested election since apartheid ended and democracy was established in 1994. After Zuma was imprisoned in 2021, there were riots, looting and other disturbances that resulted in over 350 fatalities. Zuma's followers have once again threatened violence this year if things do not go their way, according to Zakhele Ndlovu, a KwaZulu-Natal University politics lecturer. A small group of MK activists demonstrated their support for Zuma by chanting and dancing outside the court while donning the party's green and black colors. Following over 10 hours of hearings, the court reserved decision and adjourned. A final decision is expected to be handed down in the next few days, according to legal experts. The issue concerns the interpretation of a constitutional provision that prevents members of parliament from holding office after receiving a sentence of more than 12 months in jail. Yolanda Pondo, BGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
In India, phase 4 of the 6 weeks-long elections is underway as voters elect 96 members of parliament to the Lok Sabha, parliament's lower house. Almost 1 billion people are eligible to vote in the world's largest electoral exercise. There are two main contenders. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's governing Bharatiya Janata Party and the main opposition party, the Indian National Development Inclusive Alliance, led by Rahul Gandhi. Meanwhile, Arvind Kejriwal, the chief minister of the capital, Delhi, was released from jail on Friday. This after a court ordered his release on bail so he could continue campaigning. He's a key leader in an opposition alliance competing against Modi. However, he will return to prison on June the 1st when the elections conclude. Kejriwal and Gandhi are part of an opposition alliance composed of more than 24 parties. Kejriwal was taken into custody in March on corruption charges. More than 1,000 supporters gathered outside the prison to greet him. He addressed the crowds, saying, "We have to save this country from dictatorship. I'm fighting against it with all of my might." Indian soldiers have completed their withdrawal from the Maldives. The troops had been stationed there to conduct marine surveillance, search and rescue operations and medical evacuations on the islands. However, last year, President Mohamed Muizu demanded their withdrawal after he won the elections in November. The third and final batch of 27 soldiers left the archipelago on Friday, taking the final count to 88. Muizu has committed to downgrading his ties with India, opting to strengthen ties with China instead. He entered a raft of agreements with China in January to build about 30,000 apartments on an island to be reclaimed near the congested Maldivian capital of Male. China has expressed its willingness to work with the Maldives and expand exchanges and cooperation in various fields. Coming up, a brief look at business stories from BRICS countries. But first, take a look at what's coming to BGTN soon.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
What was your moment in prison when you were like, I don't want to do this anymore?
I was 21 years old when I took my first life in prison. I had one star on my shoulder. By the age of 25, I became the first Star General of the 28th, meaning that I had 4 stars on both my shoulders. I had taken 8 people's lives.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
I remember being in the stadium, going into the stadium, and then there were kids outside asking for our autograph and things like that. And they really believed that we were these superhuman characters, that we just used the wheelchair to get around, hidden superpowers kind of thing. And the stadium in London was sold out every single day. I mean, for that, it I think was both for the athlete and for people around the world said, you know, this is actually something worth watching. This is something, you know, that's worthwhile. We can take note of it.
Brazil and China are set to mark a significant milestone in their space cooperation with the anticipated announcement of a joint meteorological satellite. This groundbreaking project will be unveiled in June during the Sino-Brazilian High-Level Commission for Coordination and Cooperation, COSBAN, meeting in Beijing. The Brazilian Space Agency says it's something it's never done before. Brazil currently lacks its own meteorological satellites and relies on data from American, European and Japanese satellites for weather forecasting. The new Sino-Brazilian satellite aims to change that by providing more comprehensive data, both in general and specifically for Brazil. While Brazil says the satellite will not work magic, it will significantly enhance Brazilian weather and climate forecasting, as climate change leads to more severe and dangerous weather phenomenon. Having accurate and timely meteorological information becomes crucial. In addition to the joint meteorological satellite, Brazil and China are making progress on another collaborative project, the Cebes 6 radar satellite. Unlike previous Sino-Brazilian satellites that captured still pictures, this smaller and more advanced satellite utilizes radar technology. The Cebes 6 satellite is scheduled for launch in 2028. The collaboration between Brazil and China reflects a broader trend of increased cooperation among the BRICS nations in the space sector. Negotiations are ongoing to share satellite data and imagery, fostering greater ties between these countries. And as the joint meteorological satellite takes center stage, Brazil and China continue to strengthen their partnerships in space exploration. The future looks promising for further advancements and shared achievements in this critical field. In Dubai, Emirates Airline chairperson Sheikh Ahmed has voiced his dissatisfaction with Boeing's ongoing delays on the 777X program. He's urged the aircraft manufacturer, facing a leadership shakeup and safety concerns, to prioritize fixing the issues. The delayed delivery puts pressure on our existing fleet, Sheikh Ahmed stated, while acknowledging assurances from Boeing's new management to address the issues. He emphasized he's not happy.
I'm not happy. I hope that the new management today, that they would put all the effort to fix Boeing, I would say, or the delivery of Boeing, the new aircraft 777.
Emirates, the world's largest 777 operator with 205 planes on order, is particularly impacted by the delay. They've resorted to refurbishing their current fleet to manage capacity concerns. He's asked for a clear delivery date, accusing Boeing of a lack of communication. Recent flooding in Dubai has further strained their operations, with cancellations exceeding 2,000 flights and significant financial losses. And the news coming from the United States about Boeing is not good, as the manufacturer's woes continue with leadership changes and production cuts. The Federal Administration Authority, already criticized for lax oversight in past Boeing crashes, faces renewed pressure to improve its checks and balances. Boeing is facing scrutiny after a series of incidents, including a mid-air fuselage panel blowout on a 737 MAX in January. This follows 2 fatal crashes of the 737 MAX model in 2018 and 2019. Lawmakers are demanding the FAA share responsibility for safety lapses. Calls are growing for the FAA to conduct more inspections and rely less on self-reporting from Boeing. While some experts see modest improvements by the FAA, others believe a more significant overhaul is needed. The FAA's ability to effectively regulate Boeing remains a critical question mark. To America-China relations, the United States is contemplating an increase in tariffs on clean energy goods from China, potentially quadrupling levies on electric vehicles. This development, as detailed by the Wall Street Journal, marks the conclusion of a long-awaited assessment of tariffs implemented during the trade dispute between Washington and Beijing. Former President Donald Trump had imposed tariffs on approximately $300 billion worth of Chinese goods. Subsequently, officials initiated a review of these measures, with the U.S. Trade Representative mandated to assess the impact of tariffs initially imposed in 2018 after a 4-year period. The decision expected this week coincides with President Joe Biden's preparations for the upcoming presidential elections in November, where he's expected to face Trump again in a bid to appeal to blue-collar voters in Pennsylvania, a swing state. Biden had advocated for tripling tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminium last month. The increased tariffs are poised to affect crucial minerals, solar products and batteries imported from China, as reported by the Wall Street Journal. Moreover, the tariff rate on electric vehicles is slated to surge from 25% to approximately 100%, according to the report. BGTN's Kakangofe has more.
While this may not have an immediate impact on Chinese EV companies, which have a limited presence in the US due to existing tariffs, officials seem intent on safeguarding against Chinese imports. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen recently cautioned against China's overcapacity, which could flood the global market with underpriced goods, potentially harming the burgeoning US industries. The United States has been striving to bolster its domestic green technology supply chains, with a particular concern over excess capacity in sectors such as electric vehicles, batteries, and solar energy. These tariff measures build upon earlier initiatives by the Biden administration, including an ongoing investigation into the national security implications of Chinese automotive technology amid concerns about potential data collection. Despite advocating for higher steel tariffs, Biden has refuted claims of trade war with China. Kakangofe, BGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Coming up in just a bit, BRICS Sports News.
Every white cross represents a farmer who has been murdered. Some call these the forgotten farm murders.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
This blind kid arrives. I get emotional. And he's special needs and he's blind. And they can't talk to him. So I grab him and I put him on the boxing bag and I put the gloves on and I illustrate to him, hit the bag. And just to see this child learn in 1 minute how to let his aggression go, and he loved it. And he was squealing because obviously he was mentally challenged and things like that. Just to see that, sure, it was incredible.
In your sports headlines, Al Hilal victorious in Saudi Pro League final. Kolkata Knight Riders through to the IPL playoffs. And Abu Dhabi gears up for the World Judo Championships. In Saudi Arabia, Al Hilal have secured their 4th Saudi Pro League title in 5 years this past weekend, leaving Cristiano Ronaldo's Al Nassr chasing their first. Despite losing Neymar to injury in October, Al Hilal cruised to a 4-1 victory over Al Hazm, building an unassailable lead with 3 matches to go. This championship caps a historic season for Al Hilal. They remain undefeated in 31 league matches and boast a record-breaking 34 consecutive wins across all competitions. Al Hilal has dominated a thrilling Saudi season following Ronaldo's arrival in January 2023, and this sparked a wave of high-profile signings including Neymar, Karim Benzema, N'Golo Kante and Riyad Mahrez, and lured by lucrative deals in the oil-rich nation. The big 4 Saudi clubs, Al Hilal, Al Nassr, Benzema's Al Ittihad and Mahrez's Al Ahli, are all backed by the Public Investment Fund, aiming to diversify the Saudi economy beyond oil. Al Hilal's next challenge, Ronaldo's Al Nassr in the King's Cup final on May the 31st. Can they secure another trophy and dash Ronaldo's hopes of silverware? In Indian Premier League news, the Kolkata Knight Riders are through to the playoffs. This after clinching an 18-run win over Mumbai Indians over the weekend, making it 9 wins in 12 matches and becoming the first team to secure a place in the playoffs. The match was shortened due to rain with a 16 overs-a-side game. Venkate Iyer scored 42 off 21 balls for Kolkata, with the team finishing on 157 for 7. Mumbai finished on 139 for 8 as Tilak Varma hit a 17-ball 32 before falling to fast bowler Harshit Rana, who took 2 wickets in the last over. Another 2 wickets were taken by Andre Russell. United Arab Emirates Abu Dhabi is gearing up to host the 2024 edition of the World Judo Championships, starting on the 19th of May, concluding on May the 24th. The event, being held at the Mubadala Arena, is the last major stop for those looking to qualify for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Top athletes from 130 countries are expected to compete, which will see the highest level of judo on show from 630 participants, 325 men and 305 women. BRICS plus countries due to participate include Brazil, India, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and South Africa. Coming up, BGTN Cares. Find out how you can use your voice in the fight against human trafficking.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
Now, can your program be copied overseas, or is it exclusively designed for South Africa's society?
So it can definitely be replicated. We've replicated it in businesses even, and we've used it in after-school programs that are not in school specifically. So we've already seen that it works in different contexts, and we'd love to take it overseas because obviously a few tweaks here and there, if needed, can be made. But the point is the basic model is something that anyone can use.
BRICS Global Television Network is proud to announce the launch of the 22 Seconds Anti-Trafficking Campaign. This campaign aims to shed light on the alarming reality that one person is trafficked every 22 seconds somewhere in the world. Running from May the 1st, 2024 to June the 3rd, 2024, this initiative seeks to raise awareness and inspire action to combat human trafficking on a global scale. BGTN's Kaka Ngofe, who's heading up the campaign, spoke to Joburg radio station 919's Lebo Masike over the weekend about the initiative.
So when we came with 22 Seconds, this 22 Seconds Anti-Human Trafficking campaign, it was a platform for us to, to get people to talk about this, to spark dialogue, It was to get people to realize the severity of this matter and to understand that human trafficking is not a far-fetched thing. It's not something that when you speak about, you must think of someone who's far from you, or it happens to one person. It can happen to your friend, it can be through a neighbor, it knows no boundaries, it has no distance. And that's what the 22 Seconds campaign is about.
For more information and to use your voice in the fight against human trafficking, sign up on our website. There's a petition there. Well, that's it for now. We'll have more tomorrow. In the meantime, check out our social media for updates.